Today, we are going to talk about spiritual burnout because one thing that I have realized is life is constantly a journey of falling into the opposites. So last year, I dealt with very heavy corporate job burnout and living in the real world burnout. And in the past few months, I have now flipped the other way and have been dealing with a lot of spiritual burnout. And so I kind of took a break from spirituality and a lot of the values and standards I was holding myself to over the past few months. And I have learned a lot through that experience. So that is what I want to talk about today. Also, as I talk, I'm going to be playing with my fucking keychain stuffed animal thing that I found in a store because it helps me focus. You know, I'm actually really, really excited to talk about this and talk about taking a break from my spirituality because I feel like the people who know me and follow me on my page know that I am like very spiritual. Like I usually take it very, very seriously, and I have done a lot of work on myself in the past year, and I've traveled to new places and I've followed my intuition and I've taken ayahuasca and I did a Vipassana meditation retreat and all of these things. And it's important to have balance between pursuing your spiritual growth and your real human life. And the reason I found such bad burnout originally in my job is because I hadn't integrated spirituality into my life at all. But then I dove so far into spirituality that again, I went so far the other way that I hit burnout in that aspect. And it really is a lesson in, now that I've felt both extremes, figuring out how to integrate both sides. So let's set the stage for how this happened. In April, I was in Thailand, I was in Chiang Mai, and I decided to enter into a Vipassana meditation retreat. This was intense. Even though it's like since September, I have been meditating twice a day, and it was still intense. It was 10 days of meditating like 8 to 10 hours a day. And there was no talking except for asking questions during class, and there was no reading, no writing. You hand in your phone when you get there. The whole goal of being there is to sit in your own mind and reflect and meditate for, again, like 8 to 10 hours a day, which I did when I left that place. So there is walking and sitting meditation, and my total time for walking meditation was like a day and 15 hours. And then same thing for sitting meditation. So I'd spent over 3 days of the 10 days that I was there in meditation. And this is including like all the hours that I slept and stuff. So it was fucking intense. And after getting out of that experience, I was so exhausted. Let me tell you, I am so thankful that I did it. It taught me so much about myself, so many lessons that I'm still moving forward and still learning how to integrate. And I absolutely want to go back and do something like that in the future, but it was a lot of work and purging so many emotions, and I left there and I was just so exhausted. And right after that, my plan for traveling was to go to a little small town up in northern Thailand called Pai. So I got there and I immediately just kind of, for the next couple of days, I laid out. I didn't do much of anything. And even though I had been meditating consistently every morning, every night for over 6 months, after getting out of Vipassana, I was so exhausted that suddenly I found myself not able to meditate in that routine that I had had for so long anymore. And so I stopped meditating, which I feel like for the people who know me, know my page, it is kind of crazy for me. When I say stopped meditating, I never I never stopped completely, but it turned into this thing where I would do it maybe once every couple of days rather than every day as a routine. So that is something that is a lifestyle that I have not experienced since August. So that was factor one. That was factor one that started pushing me away from my spirituality. Factor two is I started making friends. So basically, oh my God, is that a spider? That is a spider. Hi. Hi. I feel like this is a sign of my growth because in the past I would immediately like, oh, I need to kill it. And now I'm like, okay, we can vibe. Stay over there. But if you stay over there, we can vibe. Growth. Anyways, I have spent my entire life feeling like I was different and wanting so badly to build connections and community. And every time in the past where I've entered into a group, it's never felt like I've fully been part of the group. It's always felt like I'm an observer of the group. Like, oh, this is that group of friends, and then Heather's just there. I've never felt like fully integrated into a group where I'm fully a part of it. It's always felt like they're just allowing me to be there, and if I wasn't there, it wouldn't make a difference. I don't know. That's how I felt in any time I've tried to enter into a group of friends, which is why I often just tend to have one-on-one friendships and relationships. With that being the case, I think that searching for belonging has been a very, very big theme in my life. And that search for belonging has entered me into groups and friendships that I don't necessarily enjoy or aren't the best for me because I'm changing who I am in order to fit into the group. There's just been this constant cloud of loneliness over me my whole life, and especially when you enter into the lifestyle of being a solo traveler, which I am, it compounds it. It compounds it so much. So I have been traveling on my own for a while, and as much as I've loved it and I've met cool people along the way, I have also felt that loneliness of only having my few deep connections that I have are online because they don't live in the same place as me and we're communicating by phone. Or the people that I do meet in person, it's nice and we hang out in the moment, but it isn't, then they move away. It isn't a deep connection that lasts, sort of thing. And so my soul had been craving connection for so long. And I get to Pi. And Pi is a very special place. It's a much more spiritual place than I have found in the past. And so for the first time, I was meeting a lot of people who had much, much more similar mindsets to me. I've been so used to entering into spaces knowing that I was going to be like perceived as weird or out there for being like a little too woo-woo, a little too spiritual. Like, I think I just got so used to that expectation that when I got to Pi and me kind of just existing, it wasn't that way. It was accepted because a lot of people here are that way. Felt so good. And I think if it felt a little too good because it caused me to lose myself a little bit and start to lose myself more in the experiences of being human. There's like so many different thought trains right now that I'm like, how do I follow them all? And I feel like when I watch this back, it's going to be like so many different directions. Okay, where were we? So I had found these people that I felt a lot more similar to, like were also spiritually oriented. And again, I had this like lifelong craving for connection. And I think those two things set me up to lose myself a little bit, because I started to mold myself and mask again, because I'm neurodivergent. I'm a very high masking neurodivergent, in order to fit into those spaces. And it's interesting. This is one thing I've learned with how the universe works, is that they'll bring you a lesson and it's kind of very in your face, like you've learned the lesson, and then they'll bring it around to you again in a more subtle capacity to see if you can still catch it and still learn the lesson. So, right, for me, the very first lesson was growing up my entire life and heavily masking, like very heavily masking, where there were people kind of completely different to me, completely different from my interests and what I wanted to do, but me having connection, approval, and validation from other people was so above everything else in my life that I would just kind of completely shapeshift and change who I was in order to meet those people. And what sparked my spiritual journey was realizing, like, fuck no, we're not going to do that, right? So then I started rooting into, what do I like? Who am I as a person when I take away all external influences, rooting into my authenticity? Okay. And I did that for a while alone, which is why I started to feel lonely. And now then I get to Pi, right? And it's the same lesson, but it's more subtle, because these people, like, I almost want to talk about like a Venn diagram. And in the past, like, I was a whole circle over here, and there were other people that were whole circles over here, and I was just trying to completely like vibe with them. And over time, I've learned that if there's someone who's like a completely whole circle over here and we don't like overlap at all, that's just not my people, right? When I got to Pi, it was more of an actual Venn diagram where there were a lot of more common interests and mindsets overlapping between me and the people here than I'm used to. Since that's never happened to me before, I almost got like so excited about it that, again, I started reaching out for that belonging and that a connection. And unfortunately for me in that mindset, because masking can become so subconscious sometimes, I started again, like the overlapping Venn diagram. There's still parts of me and things that I think about and ways I want to live my life that didn't overlap with these people, but I started to like push myself that way in order to make these friendships. So that's the lesson that we've been learning over the past 2 months, because in pushing myself that way, I started to change a lot of the values in how I want to live my life in order to seek out that connection. This is like nothing to say against any of the people here. I just think, again, for me, it was a real lesson in no matter how many similarities you can have between you and another person, there are always going to be facets of you that make you different. And one of my deepest wounds is wanting belonging. And so I'm very, very prone to losing myself in that. I saw a quote recently. I think it's the complete, summary of what I've been learning here. But it said, your need for belonging is what is holding you back. And it's so true. It's so true. I've seen the ways in which it has happened to me here. So I'll give some examples in which, you know, I'm not the type of person who really likes to go out at night. It's usually not my vibe. I don't like staying out late. I don't like waking up late and feeling like I'm losing my morning. The music is way, way too loud for me. I get very easily overstimulated. I don't understand at bars. Actually, this pisses me the fuck off. Can we talk about how you go to bars and there are some bars where it's not a dancing vibe. It's not a dancing bar because there's only a few people dancing. Majority of people are sitting and talking, but they play the music at the volume of a dancing bar. So you're trying to sit and talk, but you can barely hear the other person. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? So like, I don't like those places. I don't like drinking. I decided that I wanted to go sober, and I had been sober for a long time. I decided that I don't want to smoke. I don't want to smoke weed. Now I have altered that rule. We can get into it again. Experiencing both extremes allows me to figure out what I want. I have now altered that rule where it's fine occasionally, but the intention is the most important thing. I really, really value my time to myself. As much as I want this connection, I need time to myself in order to reconnect with me and my values. I really hope people can follow this storyline because I feel like I'm all over the place. But yeah, so I just get out of this meditation retreat where I'm exhausted, and I come to this place where I'm connecting with people a lot more than usual. And so suddenly I'm in this space where I am not meditating consistently again, and I am starting to do things like everyone else around me in order to extend that bid for connection. So I started going out again and staying out late because that's like what everyone in the hostel was doing. And then inevitably I can't handle those situations sober because I get so overstimulated and the music's so loud that, okay, I went there, now I'm having a drink. And then they would be passing around a joint and it's put in front of me. And so then I take it because it's what everyone else is doing. And like, again, and this is what I told myself when I first started falling into it, is I'm an adult. These things aren't necessarily bad, and I have the freedom to do what I want. And that is absolutely the case. Nothing against like everyone I've interacted with doing all of these things. Like, it's absolutely fine. It's just there are different lifestyles and different ways to live your life, and you need to figure out what you like and what works for you. So I just figured out that for me, not my thing. But again, I so badly wanted to connect with people that I threw myself back into it. I also used to hold myself to like a really, really strict diet. So I started letting go on that and eating a little less healthily than I normally do. I used to be very, very work productive in terms of even like my account and trying to figure out my spiritual business. And I started pulling back from that and being more flowy and letting things come. I really fully delved into the human experience for a full 1 or 2 months where I was just kind of focused on, interacting with the people around me, doing what feels good, having fun. And wow, did I learn a lot from that experience. I learned so much that I really hope I'll be able to speak about it all because, again, I feel like my brain is going in so many different thought trains. So let's talk about a few of them. First off, I think in the beginning of this, I said, I took a break from my spirituality. You can actually never take a break from your spirituality. It was a lie. You can't take a break because everything that has just happened to me, again, is part of my spiritual journey. Because again, it's these lessons that I learned originally and they're being brought back around in a subtler form for me to integrate them even deeper. So I think it can be very easy, even with the just like not meditating regularly thing, it could be very easy for me to look back on the past few months where that happened and feel like I've reverted spiritually or something. And that's not the case. It's never the case. Again, it's like, I feel like the spiritual journey is like a pendulum, right? Like, the spiritual journey is like a pendulum. And when you're first starting off, you're very, very new. You're like a child. You're learning all these lessons clumsily. So you're going to like make some progress all the way over here and learn the lesson. And then, you're going to go right back to the original pattern, right where you were in the beginning. But you've experienced what it's like over here. So now that's in your memory. So you fall back into this extreme and you're like, wait, but I liked it over there. And then you you go back over to this side. And then again, maybe you kind of like fall off and you're still teeter-tottering the other way. But then the more over time that you integrate, the more balanced you become, right? So I started off my journey with this like super shitty human experience that pushed me to my absolute breaking point. And then that caused me to find spirituality and all of this positive stuff and yay. But you can't live your like spiritual being having a human experience. Emphasis on the human part. You can't deny either of them. You can't live in either of these extremes. So then I fell back the other way. But not as far as here. Like a little bit less. And again, I kind of experienced what it felt like, what I do and don't like. Now, even as I'm talking about this, integrating again. And so then we're going to go back into the spiritual side. And it's going to be from a bit more grounded place. And then inevitably, who knows, a few months from now, a year from now, I might take a break from my spirituality again and dive more into the human side again, but with the memory of all of these lessons from before, and then eventually enlightenment. I love that. I feel like I'm a visual person, and I feel like that was very, very helpful. So I hope that helped someone. I got so into that visual that I almost don't remember what we were talking about before. Oh yeah. So I think it's super easy to look at myself and be like, oh, I fell off the meditation wagon. No, it's just showing me more about how to find a way to meditate consistently that works for me. And maybe the way in which I was doing it before, which was very like strict, like, oh my God, you have to meditate every day, and if you miss a day, you're a failure. Maybe that wasn't the right mindset. Maybe we need to slowly integrate it back in from a place of love and devotion so that it can be sustainable and we can iron out the pendulum, sort of thing. Here's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, though. You need to carve out space for yourself. You absolutely need to carve out space for yourself. Especially if you are like me, like I was describing before, like you are one of these souls that just constantly grew up feeling different from everyone around you. That is for a reason. That is for a reason. It is because you have unique experiences and lessons and wisdom that you are meant to share, and you will not be able to tap into that or share it if you are constantly surrounded by other people, and if you constantly fall into this trap of trying to be around other people, trying to change yourself to fit in, trying to find belonging. You are going to run into so much hurt and mental anguish, and that is what happened for me. And so you need to carve out space for yourself. Your difference is a strength, but you will never be able to see it as a strength if you are constantly surrounded. And so like that is what triggered my whole spiritual journey, is because suddenly I had quit my job and I was so burned out. I couldn't really see people and I had almost no friends. So I was speaking to almost no one. And in that empty space is where I found myself, and I found my power, and I found the strength in my differences, and sharing that has now allowed and inspired other people to see their own as well. And none of that would have happened if I was constantly surrounding myself with friends. And so back to that quote that I brought up, like your need for belonging is what's holding you back. Holy shit, yeah, have I felt that in the past 2 months, because I fell into it again where I so badly wanted to fit in with other people to the detriment of losing myself again, losing what I love, my values, starting to feel inferior again, like ugly duckling syndrome, imposter syndrome, because I'm in these spaces, but knowing that I don't fit there. And it's for a reason. If you feel like that, it's for a reason. because you were never meant to fit into the puzzle. You were meant to be like the picture on the front of the puzzle box that shows other people what is possible for them if they try stopping to force themselves into places that they don't fit. I fucking love this whole puzzle analogy. And wow, I feel like it's kind of easier for me to speak with my eyes closed. Maybe losing the channel. Maybe let's get it back. What were we talking about? If you're resonating with any of the things that I'm saying here, one of the things that I've recently learned, there's this quote that people talk about often in the self-development entrepreneurship space. You are a representation of the 5 people around you. So they say you want to make sure the people that you're spending the most time with are people that align with you and your values, and people that will uplift you rather than drag you down. Because if you're surrounded by an environment of people who aren't setting as high goals and maybe more pessimistic, it will drag you down. So they say you are a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Make sure you are choosing them wisely. Okay, I want to make a small iteration to that. One of those 5 people has to be yourself. It has to be yourself, because in these past 2 months, I've started to fall into so many old rumination patterns and patterns of doubt. And it is because I have not given myself the empty space with absolutely no one else around me in order to validate myself and validate what I am doing and be strong in myself. The more you surround yourself with noise, the more you are going to question yourself. You need to take space. You need to take space to listen to your intuition, and you need to take space to validate yourself in that and validate yourself and your intuition and your path with no one around you. So that way you can then go out into the world where a lot of other people aren't going to necessarily agree, and you still need to know that you have yourself. That's the problem. I've been not taking enough space for myself. I've been surrounded by so many people all of the time that when I'm kind of met with disagreement or resistance, I started to feel that again. Those feelings of doubt, those feelings of inferiority, because I haven't been giving myself enough alone time and enough space. I really feel like it's like one of the biggest, it might be the biggest lesson that my soul is here to learn. And I feel like this is gotta be a huge wound for a lot of other healers, a lot of other people who feel like they're in this path to be in a sort of leadership space. Because if you think about it, what is a leader? They're literally separated from the pack, there to lead the pack. So we grow up our whole lives feeling not part of the pack, feeling like we're different, and feeling so upset about that all we try to do is fit ourselves back into the path. And in doing that, you will continue that same karmic cycle until you finally realize that you were never meant to be part of the pack, and you separate yourself away and you get strong in who you are, and you don't change it no matter who you're around. And let me tell you, it's so lonely sometimes. It's so fucking lonely. And it has gotten lonelier since I've been here, because again, when I first got here, I was so excited because the mindsets between me and other people were so much more similar than I'm used to, that I got so excited. And I'm just kind of realizing that I'm a very unique person, and that means that no matter the people that I find, no matter how much we overlap, it's that Venn diagram. There's always going to be parts of me that are different, that don't drive with everyone else. And it's lonely, let me tell you, it's lonely, but it's part of your purpose. It's part of your purpose to be the leader. Like, I am so thankful for the community that I've been able to create and hold space for on Instagram. And at the same time, the inner child in me sometimes wishes that she was just fully part of a group and fully seen and didn't feel like she was on the sidelines. But it's a wound. It's a wound that we're working through. Okay, I feel like, is this off topic from the original plot of the movie? That's how I like to explain when I get off topics for things. For things, when I just follow a complete tangent on a topic, I'll say, okay, back to the original plot of the movie, which was spiritual burnout and what I learned. Another thing that I've learned in having the pendulum swing both ways is realistic wellness, because that is part of the problem. That is how I hit such spiritual and self-development burnout, is because it wasn't realistic wellness. It wasn't rooted in reality. I was holding myself to such high standards that were not sustainable and were actually separating me from my humanness. And so figuring out what my values are, but also holding myself to a standard that is realistic, that is rooted in reality. Like, maybe I have the goal to meditate every single night before I go to bed, but now, I have discovered that there are a few times that I might be out and get home much later than intended. Like, since I started fire spinning and I spin in the fire shows, I'll be getting home late and I will feel way, way, way too tired to meditate. But then I shame myself for the fact that I'm not able to stick to the routine. Okay, Heather, maybe we're a little more realistic where we have this goal of meditating and stuff. But, some days you are just going to go out and be a human and have a human experience. And if you don't meditate on those days, then it's fine, I also feel like this experience, even though, again, my brain likes to be very like, oh, you stopped meditating, you stopped eating healthier, you stopped being as productive, I feel like it was very much grounding me back into my lower chakras, because I feel like for months I've been very much like in my third eye and crown chakra, like getting all of these downloads, all of this spiritual wisdom that I've been sharing with you guys, that I've been using on my own self-development. But again, at a certain point, you need to get rooted, like in your human experience. And in some ways, that constant pursuit of downloads, of enlightenment, left absolutely no space for just the simple enjoyment of the human experience, which is also part of what we're here to do as a soul. And in constantly pursuing my spiritual growth as well, it left no space for the physical manifestations of what I was learning. For example, I am painting a mural right now, which is allowing like my creativity to come out, and it's a mural like representation of divinity. So I love it. It's actually like, it is very much still rooted in spirituality, but I would not have gotten the inspiration to do that if I was so, again, focused on these upper chakras and the downloads that I didn't have the space to figure out how to manifest it in the physical. Sometimes doing something like that, something that seems much more human, much more rooted in the physical, is just as spiritual as meditating, as taking ayahuasca, as going on a retreat, because me and my painting is allowing my creativity to flow, and that energy to then be spread out to others. Everyone who walks by and sees that mural, artistic expression is so, so important to our humanness and our human life, and humans connecting with others, connecting to their own spirituality. And I would not have had the space to do that if I was constantly focusing on what download am I going to get next? What internal block am I going to fix next? You know what I mean? And another thing I've discovered while I've been here, I started spinning fire and I started spinning dragon staff. And again, that is something that would not have come through and I would not have found if I hadn't kind of taken a break from all of this self-development and trying to work on myself and everything else, because that is something that I've pursued simply for my own joy. It doesn't necessarily have a means to an end. I just do it because I fucking love it and enjoy it. And you know what? That has become so rooted in my spirituality as well, because it really allows me to root into my body, because I just love it, and that love emanates from me into others. And when people watch someone in flow like that, like when I've watched other fire artists perform and be in that flow state, like that, that is like the root, the essence of what human life is supposed to be, of just seeing someone like so fully in their human expression. It's an energy that you literally can't touch. I absolutely love it. And it's an energy that I wouldn't have found if I was so focused on self-development. I saw a quote recently, and it was something like the addiction to not being addicted is worse than the addiction itself. And I very much feel that way, that when I started my spiritual journey, I started to be so strict on so many things of meditation, of not drinking, of not smoking, of eating very, very healthily. And you know why? It's because I had experienced so badly in the opposite. I used to binge eat. I used to be like 40 or 50 pounds heavier. I used to drink a lot, and not for the right reasons, like alone sometimes a lot to cope. Same thing with smoking. I used to do all of those things. And so I think subconsciously I was almost so terrified of falling back into that extreme that I became addicted to not being addicted to those things. And back to that quote, the addiction to not being addicted is worse than the addiction itself, because then in being so restrictive, it was like coming from that place of fear again, and not allowing me to tap into my humanness and experience any joy. And so being in that state then was like cutting me off from my inner child, from my creativity. And so that's what happened when I got to Pi, is my inner child was just screaming out like, Heather, can we have a break? Like, Heather, you've done so much work. You've literally done so much work on yourself. Can we have a break? Can we just have some fun? So I want you to ask yourself this question. How much is my addiction to my own spiritual growth and self-development cutting me off from my creativity and experiencing joy? Because I thought, before I got here, I thought I was experiencing joy and the human experience. And I am now realizing that, like obviously I felt joy. Like, yeah, I felt joy, but not in that fully rooted human way. Always as a means to an end. Always a joy of like hitting a benchmark and then continuing, rather than, again, it's the same ideology of the dragon staff, where it's just something that I love and it doesn't have a means to an end. How much is your addiction to your self-development keeping you from being rooted in the present moment and simply just enjoying having a human experience just to have a human experience? And so I feel like going forward for me now, again, I just kind of have these knowledge now of these two opposites that I want to learn how to integrate, where, you know, I definitely lost a lot of my self-development over the past few months, and it's something that I do really, really value. So bringing that back into my life and getting clear on the standards I want to hold myself to, and holding myself to those standards and carving out space for myself, and at the same time being kind to myself when sometimes I slip off of those standards, and holding space, making space in my schedule to completely let go of those standards and just let myself play and let myself be a kid, and making more time and space in my schedule in order to have bids for human connection, because I know it's something that I want and value, and then also making sure to carve out space for myself. But I gotta say, guys, in terms of, falling on and off the train of habits and stuff, and sometimes you're in a season where you exercise a little more, and sometimes you're in a season where you need to give yourself more rest and everything, the meditation, I really feel like it's a non-negotiable. I'm glad that I fell off it, because it re-showed me how crucial and important it is for me in my life. And it is a habit that I want to stick to for my life. And having those long-term habits are harder to implement. And so I feel like me falling off the wagon was actually crucial in this, because I had that 6-month period and I saw the benefits and I saw how it worked for me. And then I fell off. And I saw the ways in which I have struggled a little more with my mental health, and I've been less clear in my thinking, and the experiencing that opposite has showed me how much I really, really do want to prioritize meditation, and having that knowledge of the opposite now allows me to take that and implement meditation again with much more of a devotion and appreciation to it. And I'm sure I will implement it again, and I will eventually hit another period again where I fall off for a little bit, and then again I will experience that and say, this is exactly why I want to meditate, because I don't like how this feels. You know what? On the topic of spiritual burnout, there is one last thing that I want to leave you guys with, because oh, I love this. I love this story, and I'm getting little chills as I say it or I think about it. I posted a video the other week, and I can't remember what video it was, but someone commented on the video and they said Saint Therese of blank. I'll put the name right here. I can't remember the name. Basically saying that I reminded them of her. And I had never heard this name before, so I decided to look her up. And I believe she's a French nun, and I was reading her story, and one of the ways in which she decided to devote herself to God and to her spirituality. And it was in little ways. So an example of one of her little ways is, she would be in church, and it would be hard for her to stay awake while in church. And so sometimes she would fall asleep in church. And instead of being hard on herself, being mad at herself for falling asleep, she said to herself, in the same way that parents still love their kids while they are sleeping, I know that God still loves me even while I'm sleeping in church. And so, offering up that love and appreciation to God in one of her little ways. And I feel like I absolutely love that, because it really ties back into this idea of realistic wellness. And even the story of the prodigal son, which has been coming to me recently. I have to say, I don't have ties to any specific religion, but I did have a Christian/Catholic background, so I do know about these things. But the story of the prodigal son, in which the one of the sons takes the inheritance from his father, and he goes off and he spends it lavishly, and nothing is left, and he's coming back to the dad begging for forgiveness, and the father loves him anyway, and God loved her anyway, even though she was sleeping in church. And I feel like it's just a beautiful reminder of those little ways in which you can constantly be connected to your spirituality. And so you can be connected to your spirituality if you are eating the healthiest that you can, and meditating twice a day, and doing all of this inner work, and you will still be connected to your spirituality, and the universe will still hold so much love and support for you when you are simply just embracing the human experience. The universe is always there to support you. They are always putting you what you need to learn on your path, and know that even as you are pursuing the path, even as it's messy, even as it's imperfect, even as sometimes it feels like you're falling a few steps backwards, they are always there. They are always supporting you. They're always loving you, and you are able to show your love and support for them in those little ways. And part of the reason I want to get that as a tattoo is it's a great lesson in releasing the shame for myself and embracing imperfection. In some ways, I can offer up my gratitude and my love for the universe by being really consistent in my meditation, and by giving back to people, and by posting and sharing in social media. And on the days where I feel really overwhelmed and life is really difficult, and maybe I haven't been able to meditate that day, or maybe I haven't been in the mental capacity to be able to post and share with other people, and maybe all I could do for that day was make myself a meal. I can still make myself that meal with so much love and gratitude for the fact that I have food on my table, that I have food to eat, and I can offer that up to the universe as one of my little ways. I'm getting chills as I say this. So yeah, guys, spiritual burnout is a thing. I think it's super important for everyone to tap into themselves and figure out the ways in which incorporating spirituality into their life works for them. Being realistic while also pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes the pendulum is going to swing, and it's going to happen because we are only human. We are spiritual beings, but we are having a human experience. And that is what I've been learning in the past 2 months. And I am infinitely grateful for the lesson. And I am super, super excited for this next season of my life, which is all about finding the balance between these two extremes that I've now experienced. I can't wait to watch this back, because I feel like the whole second half of that video was me just like freaking channeling. I feel like Bashar right now, but it really, really did help me to focus. So I'll probably be doing that again in the future. Leave a comment below what you want me to talk about in the future, because I definitely want to get a little more consistent with these, because I feel like I could talk forever. There's so many things, but there's actually so many things that I can't even think of where to start, which is why I think going into these videos with a specific topic is helpful. So comment some potential topics down below, and I will see you next time. Bye. Guys, do you see that? Do you see all the little like wisps and lines in my eye? If you fully made it to the end right now, comment the word porcupine so I know that you're a real one. And have a good day.